Hello, today is Wednesday, August 27th, and welcome to episode 494 of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you quickly up to speed on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. I'm NSI fellow Jessica Jones, and I'm joined today by our blazered NSI Advisory Board member Les Muntz and our Bird of Paradise senior fellow Bishop Garrison. All right, so we're shifting gears right now. We're going to talk about South Korean President Lee's visit to Washington, D.C., and an Oval Office discussion with President Trump that occurred earlier this week. The day began with a little bit of tension. President Trump, tweeted out what's going on with South Korea in all caps right before the visit. And I think, reports indicate that South Korean president was a little worried he might get a little bit of a Zelensky treatment in the Oval Office. But actually, the conversation went pretty well. Remember, this is the new president of South Korea. Earlier this year, we talked about on Fault Lines, there was a bit of a coup. The old president is out. So this is actually South Korean President Lee's first visit and discussion with President Trump. Heading into the meeting, there some of the topics that could be covered. President Trump has previously accused South Korea of freeloading off U.S. troops stationed on the peninsula, criticized South Korea defense spending, and of course, tariffs. We're always talking about tariffs facing South Korea. And of course, looming over the entire peninsula is the issue of North Korea, which is a topic we haven't discussed lately on Fault Lines. President Lee chose flattery as his strategy in the Oval Office. He, made some jokes, talked about golfing in a Trump Tower in North Korea. He called President Trump the ultimate peacemaker and said that if anyone could bring progress to the peninsula, it would be him. And the visit went off without a lot of hitches. It actually went pretty well. Okay, so Bishop, I want to turn first to you. What do you make of this visit by the leader of South Korea? What do you think it means for South Korea U.S. policies moving forward? What's going on?
Well, as for a lot of these things right now, it remains to be seen. One thing I'll say is that it's good that they were here. It was good that they were having a good rapport within the Oval Office. Happy to see that. I met with a friend yesterday, that a very smart former senior defense official, and then a longtime academic who has a lot of experience on the Hill. And it reminded me that a lot of what we see right now in this administration it comes from the idea of business. Their attempts to run the government as though it were a business. And we've talked about this type of strategy for generations now, as that if you ever looked at the U.S. government, it would be a failing business because of all of the money that it puts out, and it's in a deficit and everything else. So I think what you're continuing to see here with President Trump is someone who really prides himself as being a deal maker, as being a businessman, and he's going to make attempts to bridge gaps between a lot of leaders and countries that we typically have not, from a foreign policy, national security perspective, really engaged. And I think that Kim Jong Un is a perfect example of this, and why he continues to talk about the interactions with North Korea and how they have a good reputational repertoire. In his repertoire, they have a good rapport. Now, take a step back and look at this. Now, what we know in national security and foreign policy is these dictators in other countries don't necessarily see our relationships in that same light, or see government as purely transactional business situations. There's a good reason we don't run the government as a business, because we can't, because the government is designed and built to provide services to the community as a whole, and to ensure that the nation is kept safe, protected, and provided for. So you're not going to always see a return on investment in some of the opportunities and some of the engagement that you're actually making. And I worry that this is one of those typical types of situations. Korea is a longtime strategic partner for the United States, and it is an imperative that we continue to maintain a very strong relationship with them and a very strong engagement, because of where we have our troops, where we have military bases, is a strategic asset. To engage North Korea in some of these discussions is not a bad thing in and of itself, but you have to have a very strong, thoughtful strategy as to how you're going to do it, and what your actual goals are, and what metrics are behind those goals in order for you to meet success. And that's the question that I really have here. Just to say that you're going to go into the DMZ again, that you're going to go speak to Kim Jong Un. Okay, but Kim Jong Un is a murderous dictator. So is Vladimir Putin. So is so are a lot of these other folks that we're continuing to see this type of very chummy conversation and platitudes being thrown around for. So I am concerned. It doesn't mean that there's not opportunity here, but I want to hear more and see more within the situation about what are the actual goals and what do we think we can accomplish.
Les, what do you make about President's, desire to visit North Korea again? He is on the lookout for a Nobel Peace Prize. Is he going to be able to finally bring peace to the Korean Peninsula?
He needs to get 2 Nobel Peace Prizes because Barack Obama has one, and if Trump can get 2, then he wins. He'll get the club championship in Nobel Peace Prizes.
Green jacket.
Yeah, get the jacket, get on the cover, get his name on the plaque.
Yeah.
All right, I'm kind of joking. I think is a fascinating. I agree with a lot of the points Bishop made. I don't think that's the whole story, though. I think there's a fascinating example of the way Trump does the business of being the commander-in-chief of the United States. He is totally willing to throw out all convention and norms and do things other people never would have thought of as a way to shake things up. I don't, to Bishop's point on like a coherent, well thought out strategy with metrics, that's not going to happen. It depends on what you mean by well thought out. He's going to go flirt with Kim Jong Un just to kind of see the impact on Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping and the Japanese. Right? Like this is his way of kind of, let's just shake up all the sand in the sandbox. Let's turn all the toys over. Let's rearrange everything and kind of see if there's going to be some sort of advantage for us. He's willing to put a ton of pressure on South Korea, which has been a critical U.S. ally for decades in that very dangerous, very important region for our security. And he's just willing to kind of to push all the envelopes. And so, the President Lee shows up and he's got a very nice suit on, not wearing fatigues. He's hoping for a good meeting. He gets a good meeting. President Trump is smiling, but he's clearly very worried going in because all of these foreign leaders are worried about every single thing. They can't take anything for granted anymore. And so you've got to go check all your priors, work on all the fundamentals, think of creative things to offer the president. South Korea has made all these pledges about investing in the United States and buying Boeing airplanes and all that. All that sounds great. Very good stuff. Would they have done that otherwise? I don't know. So this is like this kind of chaos, willing to do anything element shown in one of the most sensitive areas in the world, where the relationships between South Korea, North Korea, Japan, China, Russia are all so carefully calibrated that we've been like afraid to kind of bump into any of the walls. Here we just destroyed the building and are going to rebuild it on the fly, perhaps. We'll see how it goes.
Didn't he also
what
shake
happens.
Up? Wait, didn't he also do this exact shakeup though in his first administration by visiting North Korea?
He's a fan of shakeups. He does shakeups on a maybe a quarterly basis. It feels like right now, and that's problematic a little bit. Yeah.
So this goes right. I think, but this goes to the metrics question. Does reaching out to Kim Jong Un have to result in a peace deal with North Korea? Or can it just be the impact on Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin, who are using North Korea as a cat's paw and are worried about how dangerous this crazy guy in the mountains is? And here Trump comes in and is willing to go play ball with them. What does that do to their plans? They got to go check everything too.
Yeah, like every meeting or every call doesn't need to be, in a sense, a part of a grander strategic plan. But if it because some of it is like just general relationship building. However, with these types of individuals, you need to have some stated end goals in the back of your mind with your team. You need to have a path that you're actually moving down, or you're going to inadvertently cause some kind of catastrophe or kerfluffle, maybe even just something lesser, an issue that you may not have been able to see prior to whatever that interaction is. So you need to be somewhat thoughtful if it's not a part of your larger plan. Is my
I think that's a fault line. This is like no plan. Shake it up.
I think we touched on it at the very beginning. It's 2 Nobel Peace Prizes.
That's the strategic plan. There you go.
That's quite a to-do list for Trump 2.0. Okay, that's a wrap. Thanks to Kelly Crowley, Taylor Lane, Claude Jennings, and the NSI team for their help in producing today's episode. Join us on Friday, perhaps a fun Friday, August 29th, for another episode of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you quickly up to speed on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. We're on YouTube. Check out Bishop's fun shirt there. And if you like what you heard or saw, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe.